Shiva Sri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Aditi Mahaprabhu, Shri Matadi, Pajamati, Matati, Kavati, Patati, Tanti, Patati, Patati, Rupa Bhakti, Navati, Dham ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna, Gopa Gopi, Gogovinam, Radha Saranabha, Shri Raj Mandala ki jai. Shri Shyama Kund, Radha Kund, Yamuna Kamla, Tulsi Bhakti Devi ki jai. Bhagavaya Purnamasi ki jai. Kapishwar Mahadev ki jai. Rajdam Parikama ki jai. Kartik Vat ki jai. Damodar Vat ki jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Siddhasan Chakraji ki jai. Shri Purushottam Chaitra ki jai. Vishnu Bhagavan ki jai. Bhakti Bhagavad Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Gataraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.
I'm trying to find where we are. We did Bachagaon, Anior Gaon, then we did Srinath Ji's appearance place, and Gauri Tirtha, place of Chandravali, meeting with Krishna, Govinda Kunda, Puchari, Apsara Kunda, Navala Kunda, Raghava Pandit's cave, Shamadaka, Surabhi Kunda, Aravata Kunda, Rudra Kunda, Jatipur, Madhavendra Puri's place, Anakut Stali in Jatipur, Ilachu Kunda, I think that's where we left off. Saki Stali, yeah, we left off there. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unveditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gaura Tishe Nama He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Brindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasyacha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. So first of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev. Nitya Lila Pravishno Vishnupad Paramahansa Astatarashata Sri Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada, whose divine disappearance day we observed yesterday and this morning with devotees glorifying Srila Prabhupada. And then my same unlimited Dandavat pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishtom Vishnupad, Paramahansa Astatarasata, Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Shridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nitya Lila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramahansa Astatarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. My Dandavat pranams to the lotus feet of all of my Sri Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga, and my Dandavat pranams to all the Vaishnavas and to all the Vaishnavis. What an illustrious group we have here tonight. So many Prabhupada disciples. And also very special Vaishnavas visiting Braj, like Kishori Mohan Prabhu. And even KK is in the kitchen. I watched actually the video of this morning, the parts that I missed, that Sudevi took. And it's the first time that I went to her page to look at videos. But that was so helpful, because I missed the first part where she was speaking, and Gaur Hariya came in like halfway through, and Damodar. I got to hear Damodar. And Madhumango. I was here for that. Yeah.
It's a pretty great story, huh?
Yeah. Wonderful story. He's got lots of stories.
You've heard some of them.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we just had a marathon 3 days. It was quite a marathon. So much wonderful Katha, all the devotees speaking, so much nectar every day. And Giriraj Govardhan worshipping. And prior to that, for a number of days, we were reading the Parikrama book. And we were doing the Govardhan Parikrama. And we got up to a certain point, which is actually the Anukut Stali, where we're going to continue from there today. And it just so happens that it's usually this day, the day after Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day, that the big parikrama, which usually is staying there in Giridhari Gaudiya Math, they do the other half, the small half, the Radha-Kund half. So we're going along with the parikrama by Krishna's arrangement. And also because we will reach Uddhava Kunda today, prior to Radha-Kund. And usually each year when I would go to the Uddhava Kund, I'd bring along with me the Sarartha Darshani, commentary of 10th canto of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And I would read the verses, first of all, that Uddhava spoke, his final verses at the end of his 2 months in Braj with the Braja Gopis. So I brought that here. We'll see how far we get.
I think we're a little bit ahead of them. We're observing. I follow when Lasini Didi sends all of her quotes. They're coming 12 hours after we begin our festivals here. So we started Govardhan Puja, then all the Srila Bhakti Sri Rup Siddhanti Maharaj posts just started coming now. From just after Mangalarti there.
Yeah, actually, on this day, because our Rasananda Prabhu, Sridhar Maharaj, he always has some special thing. But I think maybe it's that day that they go by foot to the nearby places. Is it that day? You know, the nearby places like that are walking distance from our mutt, going all the way up to Naradakund, like that.
Right.
It might
generally, yeah.
Yeah.
I just remember Rasamalai.
I can't forget. Damodar Prabhu, could you move this camera a bit?
I can move a little.
No, it's okay. He can move. Because there's nobody sitting over there. Jai.
Here?
Yeah. So,
Don't touch.
What?
I am not allowed to touch it.
All right, so now we've come from Gantoli Gram, and now we are at Anakut Stali, and just for your information, this is the 36th place on the Govardhan Parikrama. The place adjacent to Govardhan in Jatipur is called Annakut Stali. Madhavendra Puri held the grand Annakut festival at this place for 1 month. Even now, Annakut festivals are held here on special occasions, and each day of the year, thousands of pilgrims bathe Giriraj with many liters of milk.
Is that right at Govindakund?
Well, let me backtrack here.
Jatipur, there's Madhavendra Puri Pads.
Jatipur, yeah. Jatipur. So that's the place, yeah. That's the place where Madhavendra Puri lived and was doing bhajan, and Srinathji manifested himself there.
Yeah, just across, there's a little place where there's
Right.
Giriraj.
Yeah, so that's called the Annakut Stali. Now, next place is Bilachu Kunda. Bilachu Kunda is also called Vilas Vadana, and it is a place of Sri Radha Krishna's pastimes, Vilas. Saki Stali. We all know the name of Saki Stali.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, I guess not. It was also called Kadamba Kandi. So further on from Bilachu Kunda, after crossing Dan Gati, the pilgrim enters the town of Govardhan. Okay, after crossing Dan Gati, the pilgrim enters the town of Govardhan. So this is before the town of Govardhan. Oh wait. The pilgrim enters the town of Govardhan and again performs parikrama of Manasi Ganga and Chakreshwar. Northwest of Manasi Ganga is Saki Stali. Okay. So the place of Chandravali Saki. This village is now known as Saki Tara, and it lies within Saki Van. Now, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami used to perform bhajan on the bank of Radha Kunda. He would remain absorbed in bhajan day and night, and for his daily sustenance, he would only drink a little buttermilk in a tiny cup made of kadamba leaves. What is that buttermilk called?
Matta Chach.
Both. Matta or chach. Yes, so one day, he would only be drinking a little bit of buttermilk in a tiny cup, made of kadamba leaves. But one day, a Brajvasi brought some buttermilk in a larger kadamba leaf cup. Sri Raghunath Das Goswami asked him where he had procured it from, and the Brajvasi joyfully responded, "I brought it from Saki Stali." At that time, Das Goswami was not in external consciousness, and he was irritated by the very mention of Saki Stali. He angrily ordered the Brajvasi to leave. The Brajvasi could not understand Das Goswami's mood and fled. Shri Das Goswami is an intimate maidservant in Srimati Radhika's own group, Svapaksha. An ordinary person cannot comprehend his deep mood and actions. We also heard that he threw it away, the cup of
I
buttermilk.
heard that he chased him with a
And he
stick.
chased him with a stick. So what is this indicating? Like Gurudev is saying, it's not such an easy thing to understand. Ordinary person cannot comprehend. But because we've associated with our Gurudev and our Guru Varga, so we have some idea that this mood is always there internally in their hearts. Like we've always seen Srila Gurudev particularly manifest his pro-Radharani moods as as the Palyadasis always are manifesting continually. So, but this pastime shows that Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, our Prayojan Tattva Acharya, who's really, his whole life is exemplary for the utmost and supreme attainment of the service of Srimati Radharani. And that mood of Radha Dasyam is the primary mood of all of our disciplic succession. So now we come to some, yes?
It's a question that I've had for quite a long time, and I've endeavored to answer it to myself in many different ways, but I would really like to hear your perspective and maybe anyone else's. Yeah. Next to Srimati Radhika, there's only one person that could be said is able to please Krishna almost as much as her. Mm. How do we reconcile as devotees who are in the state of aspiration, not in the state of perfection, like Raghunath Das Goswami, having a mood which is kind of vipaksha toward that person who is only second to Srimati Radhika Chandravati, where we're kind of like, no, I don't want to have anything to do with that. I don't want to go to Sakhi Stali. This is not my cup of tea, and Hare Krishna. How do we as aspiring bhaktas reconcile that? I mean, it's so easy to make Vaishnava aparad, yes. What to speak of.
No, it's absolutely imitation.
Right, so.
It's absolutely imitation. And it is an offense.
Yes.
Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj explained that there are two types of following. One is true following, and one is imitation following. One is called, you remember, Tirthaji? One is called anukar, or anukaranam, and the other is anusaranam. So anukar means to imitate.
Right.
And that's all that, I mean, just like you told the other day, the most shocking thing I think I've ever heard, that some devotee, he didn't mention names or anything, arrived with a picture of Srimati Radhika where the part with Krishna was torn off. We only want Radhika.
Yeah.
This is utterly, extremely disturbing.
Yeah.
That means they don't understand anything. Nothing. They don't understand Siddhanta at all. No Dasmul Tattva, nothing. They don't understand, you know. So this is the problem of Prakrita Sahajism, actually. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati named it Prakrita Sahajism. And they think that just by, you know, imitating these moods, we are going to achieve this. Right. We're going to experience these things. So, first of all, how is that possible for a person that's filled with lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy, and so forth? Their heart is completely impure. They're in this, maybe in the stage of anartha nivritti only, and they're going to try to imitate the actions of the topmost Mahabhagavat, who is, you know, the eternal maid servant of Srimati Radhika. This is very offensive, actually. It's a big Maha-aparad. So this is one of the reasons why there's so much restriction given by our acharyas to even hearing a lot of these topics for those who are not yet competent to understand, and they don't even understand Siddhanta. Like Gurudev would say, in Radhakund, when we would go to Radhakund, and then at the Kunja Bihari Gaudiya Mat, every time Gurudev would come there, he'd take the microphone and he would do what his Guru Maharaj did and challenge any of the Prakrita Sahajiyas there at Radhakund. Come on, we'll debate with you, you know, because this is how the Acharya is protecting this treasure. They conceal it. They keep it concealed, you know. So, Sakhi Stali pastime of, first of all, Chandravali. Who is Chandravali? She's also an expansion of Krishna as Srimati Radhika is. She's in the same category, right?
It's an expansion of Srimati Radhika.
Yes, Srimati Radhika, but Radhika is also an expansion of Krishna. We were just reading from, what was that we were reading the other day? Srila Goswami Maharaj on Radha Tattva, that article, and so much from the various Brihad Naradiya Purana and various Brahma Vaivarta Purana, so many statements about Srimati Radharani. So, you know, I mean, that's my view of you know, persons who want to imitate rather than actually follow.
But for us, in our level, Chandravali must be given the utmost respect and
Of course.
honor.
Yeah. You want to give the mic to this?
First in their roots and out in my, I was in this mood of,
I'll take it stretches.
I said something about Chandravali, like that, about Chandravali. But actually, we find out in Uddhava Yadi, Srimati Radhika was lying there, ready practically to leave her body, they saw. Everybody came up to Uddhava basis, even Chandravali.
Yes.
Came out of the basis for Srimati Radhika. So they were very close, even though they were competitors. You know, not that they had some heavy enmity for them.
Also, wasn't she appreciating whoever those footprints are, Aniyaradhito Nunno?
Yes, yes.
She
That's
must be the
also another
most
point.
fortunate.
And in fact, we know that the whole purpose of Krishna's disappearing was to bring about what? Unity amongst the gopis. And that united them.
Right.
They all sat together and they all wept on the bank of Jamuna and sung the Gopi Geet together, you know. So the apparent competition, competitive groups and all of that, that's all arranged by Yogamaya to give Krishna more tasting of rasa.
Right.
And it's required, you know. But there's absolutely not one tinge of envy, even though externally when we hear, it might appear like that.
Yes.
But it's not. So that's the thing. Yeah. Take the mic.
You gotta turn it on to the switch.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, that verse actually, Anu Radhika
Yes.
Nunam, that was spoken by Chandravali and the Vipaksha gopis
Yes.
that pointed out that Srimati Radhika is the highest.
Yes. They began to understand that, and that was the beginning of their uniting.
Because they weren't exactly sure whose footprints it were.
Yes.
It was.
Yes.
The Svapaksha and the Suhrid, they knew it was Srimati Radhika.
Yes.
The Vipaksha, they were
Right.
just glorifying
And
whoever.
that's why they refer to her as Anaya Aradito, as that other gopi, that particular gopi. Yeah. So, any other point on that?
Yeah, I was just wanting clarification for that because of these, you know, there's a conflict, you can say a conflict of interest when you have your goal and some understanding of the goal, and then our current reality and how we should be here and now, it's very different than how we would be there, and it has to be like that. But I just wanted to make sure, like Srila Tirtha Maharaj would glorify Chandravali's love for Krishna as the topmost, because she kind of technically fulfills Anyabhilashita Shunyam in a way that seems superior to that of Srimati Radhika. But just for those who are endeavoring or praying for Radha Paksha, how much honor, respect, or glorification of Chandravali is allowed until it's not necessarily favorable for the attainment of our goal.
Well, we can see that there's not so much discussion.
Yeah.
Just like in Ujjvala Nilamani, of course, there will be descriptions of the different groups of gopis and so forth. But all the katha that we're hearing is mainly Radha Paksha and Srimati Radhika and Krishna and their pastimes. But she's there in the background. She has to be.
Uma, Rama, Satya, Shachi, Chandra,
Ah, yes.
Rukmini.
You're talking about the first verse of the Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu?
For those of us who
The Tarakapali.
have feet on the ground,
Uma, Rama, Satya, Shachi, Chandra, Rukmini, Radha, Avatar, Sami.
Chandravali is supporting the Ras of Srimati Radhika.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand one thing you said. That Chandravali's mode is the highest. Did you say that?
next to Srimati Radhika, there is no one's love that is considered as high. So basically, second only to Srimati Radhika, that is such a high state of transcendental divine love for Krishna that she actually has the capacity to delay Krishna from going to Srimati Radhika. That kind of capacity of love and affection, and the maidservants have to like work a way around it.
And we were just reading one pastime how Krishna, in the association of Srimati Radhika, oh wait a minute, no, it was Krishna came into the association, oh wait, was it? Okay, Krishna was in the association of Srimati Radhika, and he was absorbed in some mood, and suddenly he mistakenly said Chandra. Yeah, that pastime.
He wanted to glorify Srimati Radhika's face as being like
and then Srimati Radhika called him, oh Kamsa, to Krishna, you know. And then he realized, oops, I made a mistake, you know. But this is all there for the background. Everything, all the rasas actually, are existing to support the ultimately Parakiya Bhav in Braj.
And the Adi Ras.
Yeah. So the mood of Parakiya Ras is so high, and those personalities in Braj, for example, Jatila, Kutila.
Right.
Now, what we see outwardly is that she's always causing difficulties for Krishna to meet with Srimati Radhika. She's always, accusing Krishna and calling him very bad names and everything. But Krishna considers those rebukes by Jatila to be more pleasing than all the hymns of the Vedas. Because it serves its purpose to unite Radha and Krishna together. So, okay?
Yes, thank you.
All right, now, after Sakhi Stali, we come to Shankarai. Shankarai. The present name of this village is Shakrava, and is situated 2 miles west of Govardhan and 1.5 miles northwest of Sakitara, Sakhi Stali. At this place, Radhika's own gopis made Krishna repeatedly swear that he knew no one other than Shri Radhika. There we go. Repeat it. Repeat after us. Hence, this place is called Sankarai, from Shapata Lena, meaning to take an oath. To take an oath.
Do you know the history behind it?
Do you?
No.
No, I don't.
Do you know, like up in Shankari Kaur,
Yeah.
right? There's a lesson, and then he has to take a vow.
Yes.
At that time,
Yes.
Krishna doesn't bow unless there's a chastisement in advance.
Yes. He has to hold his ears.
Yeah.
And so this place, the place meaning to take an oath, where Krishna had to repeatedly swear, because Radhika's own gopis made Krishna do this, repeatedly swear that he knew no one other than Shri Radhika. So, this is also where Indra donated a surabhi cow to Krishna. Shakrakunda and Gvalakunda lie here. So now, you know what the next place is? Uddhavakund. Uddhavakund. Uddhavakund is situated exactly west of Kusum Sarovara, on the right side of the Parikrama path. We mentioned the other day that from Kusum Sarovara you can look across and you can see that dome shape of the temple at Uddhavakunda, and vice versa. When you look across from Uddhavakunda, you can see those special architectural buildings at Kusum Sarovara.
Govardhan's pretty flat in that area.
Yeah, the hill is not up at all.
Yeah.
It's right next to Radhakund. And Govardhan's completely hiding at Radhakund. Not one speck of Govardhan is above. But below, he's watching everything. So Vajranabha Maharaj manifested Uddhavakunda under the guidance of Shandilya Rishi and other sages. Uddhavji always resides nearby here as grass and shrubs in order to be sprinkled by the foot dust of the gopis. The Srimad Bhagavatam Mahatmya of the Skanda Purana gives an interesting description of this place. Here it is. After the disappearance of Sri Krishna, his queens in Dwarka were greatly afflicted by sorrow. Once Vajranabha, who's the grandson or great-grandson of Krishna, I forget. Once Vajranabha came here with them. He brought all of them, just imagine, brought them from Dwarka all the way to Braj, all the queens. He came here with them and they loudly performed some kirtan. When you go there to the Uddhavakunda, they have a big board where this pastime is written up. So in that great Sankirtan, all the associates of Krishna started to appear one by one. The associates of Dwarka all sang and danced. And Arjuna began to dance and play mridanga. And suddenly, that exalted soul, Sri Uddhav, emerged from the grass and the shrubs. And he also became immersed in dancing in that Maha Sankirtan. How could Krishna not come there? So finally, he also appeared in that Maha Sankirtan Ras, along with Srimati Radhika and the other Sakhis, and after some time disappeared again. In this way, Uddhav pacified the queens at this place.
Sounds like the Kishuri festival.
Yeah. So from here, pilgrims performing parikrama of Sri Govardhan proceed along the parikrama path till they arrive at Sri Radhakunda. The parikrama and pastime places in the vicinity of Sri Radhakunda have already been described in the chapter on Radhakunda and Shyamakunda, which we're going to read next. But now I'm going to open up. And you will hear Uddhava and his statements that he made. You remember which chapter, number that is? Uddhava visits Vrindavan.
At what time did he make these statements?
At what time? At the end of his 2 months stay, when Krishna sent him, right, to deliver the message to the gopis and so forth. Actually, I'm going to need the light for this. Can you bring the light from my room? Bring both extension cords. It's plugged in underneath, next to the bed. It's on the floor.
Both of them are there?
Huh?
Both extension cords are there?
Yeah, because it's
the
loud.
power of kirtan and separation and Krishna himself.
Okay. Uddhava visits Vrindavan, page 476.
We'd always stop there at Uddhavakund, remember Gurudev would have big feast there.
At Uddhavakund?
Yeah, we'd stop there because Gurudev
Just
was
out
already there.
yeah. They would serve prasadam there every time, outside.
Gurudev was very
No, that you're talking about that small little Giriraj temple where there's a Giriraj Shila, right?
They would have
That's not at Uddhavakund.
No, but they would always have breakfast or something at Uddhavakund.
Yeah, they always have.
But there was a feast at that Giriraj temple, which is
Oh yeah,
close to
that's what
Radhakund.
I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
They stopped there for shower.
Oh.
Gurudev was there.
So they had a little breakfast there at
But
Uddhavakund.
near Uddhavakund is that other place. It's actually quite close.
But isn't it? It's on the other side, isn't it?
No,
Oh.
it's I just drove there just
Oh,
recently.
okay.
If you come through the back way
Mhm.
toward Radhakund, because they had the main road blocked, so we went around the side.
Ah.
And you come in, it's right there, and then Uddhavakund is not so far from there, a little bit further in, and
Okay.
then
So it's in between. You're saying it's in between Uddhavakund, or it's before Uddhavakund?
I think Uddhavakund is first, and then that temple, and then
Oh, okay.
Radhakund.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's true.
Maharaj,
Yeah.
so are we chanting our seconds?
We will.
Like at 10:15?
Huh?
10:15 we start because then
I mean,
RT
7:15.
10:15.
Sorry, 7:15.
He said like a 10:15.
10:15.
Yeah, 10:15, good time. Then we have a few hours
10:15.
to
I'm not
discuss.
seeing the second extension.
You have it right in your hand, both of them.
Oh.
That one? Well, there's one extension cord and one cord. You didn't bring this one before. Yeah. Okay. So Uddhava visits Vrindavan.
We're on chapter 4.
Huh?
Famous verse is 1047, so it must be around 30, 40.
You mean verse 30 or 40?
And chapter like that, I think around there.
Remember that bhajan from Surdas that Manas sang on stage that time?
We said
That this is his teacher singing
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
one.
That's the one you were telling me
Yeah,
about.
his teacher singing it. It was in the section on Uddhav Kyari. They put it in there, but still related to Uddhav.
So in this chapter, we've heard this story many times, that Krishna was feeling separation from the gopis, and he called for Uddhava. And so the first verse of this chapter, chapter 46, Shukadev Goswami said, the supremely intelligent Uddhav was the best counselor of the Vrishni dynasty, a beloved friend of Lord Sri Krishna, and a direct disciple of Brihaspati. The Supreme Lord Hari, who relieves the distress of all who surrender to him, once took the hand of his fully devoted dearmost friend Uddhav, and he addressed him as follows. Lord Krishna said, Dear gentle Uddhav, go to Braj and give pleasure to our parents, and also relieve the gopis who are suffering in separation from me by giving them my message. The minds of these gopis are always absorbed in me, and their very lives are ever devoted to me. For my sake, they have abandoned everything related to their bodies, renouncing ordinary happiness in this life, as well as religious duties necessary for such happiness in the next life. I alone am their dearmost beloved, and indeed their very self, with a capital S. Therefore, I take it upon myself to sustain them in all circumstances. My dear Uddhav, for those women of Gokul, I am the most cherished object of love, and thus, when they remember me, who am so far away, they are overwhelmed by the anxiety of separation. Simply because I have promised to return to them, my fully devoted cowherd girlfriends struggle to maintain their lives somehow or other. I'll just read a little bit from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur here. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying, Krishna said, with great difficulty the gopis are somehow maintaining their lives because of my promise to return. It would be much easier to simply give up their lives. But then someone may question, how are the gopis maintaining their lives? Krishna answers in this verse. Quote, it was by my statement, I will quickly return. Pratyagamana. Pratyagamana means I will quickly return. The statement that I made while leaving Gokul, that the gopis have strong hope that I will return. This is all that is maintaining their life heirs, which are about to leave their bodies. Then the question comes, what is their relation to you? This Krishna answers with the word balavya, meaning that even though they are women of the cowherd community, still they belong to me. Their husbands actually have no contact whatsoever with their supremely attractive qualities of form, taste, fragrance, sound, and touch. Rather, their husbands merely presume. What do they presume? These are our wives. In order to nourish the taste of rasa, the Vraja Gopis have always been, from the very beginning, in a self-sustaining conjugal relation with me as their paramour, parakiya bhav. They are to be enjoyed by me alone, because they are manifestations of my own form, Mad Atmika. As incarnations of supreme bliss, they are my own internal energy, Swarup Shakti, appearing as the essence of my pleasure potency, Hladini Shakti. Though I am Atmaram, I derive more pleasure from them. For this reason, I consider them more deserving of my mercy than even my own self. Another meaning, Mad Atmika, means these gopis are mine because they are the objects of my enjoyment, or the gopis' very selves are absorbed in me, in the sense of their always hankering to give pleasure to my mind. So that's the comment on this point that Krishna is making, that simply because I have promised to return to them, my fully devoted cowherd girlfriends struggle to maintain their lives somehow or other. Then Gurudev Goswami said, thus addressed, Uddhava addressed by Krishna, O king, Uddhava respectfully accepted his master's message, mounted his chariot, and set off for Nanda Gokul. The fortunate Uddhav reached Nanda Maharaj's pastures just as the sun was setting, and since the returning cows and other animals were raising dust with their hooves, his chariot passed unnoticed. So there's some amazing commentary, but I'm remembering how Srila Gurudev, in a number of festivals, once in Volgograd, Russia, Srila Gurudev spoke on this topic of Uddhava. He wanted that this pastime would be related. Generally, he didn't tell the Uddhava pastime, but at this festival he decided to do that. And he very much was expressing, and having us also stand and speak and like that, but the main thing that he was expressing is the extreme separation mood when Uddhava arrived of Nanda and Yashoda, because that's who he first spoke to. And also how when he first arrived in Nanda Gokul, Nanda Braja, it was like described here, that it was at the dusk, and all the dust was in the air from the cows returning. But in actuality, he was only gifted with that vision by Yogamaya. And then suddenly the curtain came down. And then he saw the devastated Braj, where no one was even taking care of their bodies. And everything was just, even the birds and the trees, and everyone was immersed in unbelievable separation. And then he came and spoke with Nanda and Yashoda. So now, here's the description, what he saw before the curtain came down. Gokul resounded on all sides with the sounds of bulls in rut fighting with one another for fertile cows, with the mooing of cows, burdened by their udders, chasing after their calves, and with the noise of milking and of white calves jumping here and there, with the loud reverberation of flute playing, and with the singing of the all-auspicious deeds of Krishna and Balaram by the cowherd men and women, who made the village resplendent with their wonderfully ornamented attire. The cowherds' homes in Gokul appeared most charming with their abundant paraphernalia for worship of the sacrificial fire, the sun, unexpected guests, the cows, the brahmanas, the forefathers, and the demigods. On all sides lay the flowering forest, echoing with flocks of birds and swarms of bees, and beautified by its lakes crowded with swans, Karandava ducks, and bowers of lotuses. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying, Vraja is here described in 5 verses. Inspired by the desire potency, the Ichcha Shakti of Krishna, who thought, let Uddhava see the splendor of my Braja. So Yogamaya covered the particular manifestation of Braja, which was merged in grief because of separation from Krishna, and undergoing the sanchari bhavs of disinterest, nirved, depression, vishad, and humility, doinya. Instead, Yogamaya showed Uddhav a typical evening in Vraj in which Krishna was present, charming with the positive sentiments of joy, playfulness, eagerness, and enthusiasm. Because the cows were in heat, the bulls were mad, mooing loudly, and fighting with each other to mate with them. Vraja echoed with the sounds of cows running after their new calves. Along with the sound of milking cows, there were shouts in all directions, such as, let the cow loose, don't let the cow loose, bring the cows here, do this quickly, do this slowly, bring this, take this, give this, receive this. Braja also appeared splendid on account of the sound of flutes and the singing of the gopis. The performance of sacrifices and worship beautified the homes of the cowherds. Text 14. As soon as Uddhava arrived at Nanda Maharaj's home, Nanda came forward to meet him. The cowherd king embraced him in great happiness and worshipped him as non-different from Lord Vasudeva. So now Vishwanath Chakravarti is telling, then Uddhava approached the home of Nanda, which was filled with misery due to separation from Krishna. Uddhava looked just like Nanda's son, Krishna, and he gave pleasure to anyone who saw him. Thus, though Nanda was stunned due to separation from Krishna, when he saw Uddhava, he became aware of external events and eagerly went out to embrace his exalted visitor. Vasudev Diya means that Nanda Maharaj thought, my worshipable deity Narayan has come here in the form of this guest. Thus, Nanda worshipped Uddhava with foot wash and other items. Text 15. After Uddhava had eaten...
Maharaj is more than 15.
Yeah. A few more minutes. After Uddhava had eaten first-class food, been seated comfortably on a bed, and been relieved of his fatigue by a foot massage and other means, then Nanda inquired from him as follows. Nanda Maharaj said, my dear fortunate one, does the son of Sura fare well, now that he is free and has rejoined his children and other relatives? Fortunately, because of his own sins, the sinful Kamsa has been killed, along with all his brothers. He always hated the saintly and righteous Yadus. Does Krishna remember us? Does he remember his mother and his friends and his well-wishers? Does he remember the cowherds and their village of Vraja, of which he is the master? Does he remember the cows, the Vrindavan forest, and Govardhan hill? Will Govinda return even once to see his family? If he ever does, we may then glance upon his beautiful face with its beautiful eyes, nose, and smile. We were saved from the forest fire, the wind and the rain, the bull and serpent demons, from all such insurmountable deadly dangers by that very great soul, Krishna. As we remember the wonderful deeds Krishna performed, his playful sidelong glances, his smiles and his words, O Uddhav, we forget all our material engagements. When we see the places where Mukunda enjoyed his sporting pastimes, the rivers, hills, and forests he decorated with his feet, then our minds become totally absorbed in him. In my opinion, Krishna and Balaram must be two exalted demigods who have come to this planet to fulfill some great mission of the demigods. Such was foretold by Garga Rishi. After all, Krishna and Balaram killed Kamsa, who was as strong as 10,000 elephants, as well as the wrestlers Chanur and Mushtika, and the elephant Kuvalayapida. They killed them all sportingly, as easily as a lion disposes of small animals. With the ease of a royal elephant breaking a stick, Krishna broke a powerful giant bow, 3 talas long. He also held a mountain aloft for 7 days with just one hand. Here in Vrindavan, Krishna and Balaram easily destroyed demons like Pralamba, Denuka, Arishta, Trinavarta, and Baka, who had themselves defeated both demigods and other demons. Shukdev Goswami then said, thus intensely remembering Krishna again and again, Nanda Maharaj, his mind completely attached to the Lord, felt extreme anxiety, and he fell silent, overcome by the strength of his love. As Mother Yashoda heard the descriptions of her son's activities, she poured out her tears, and milk flowed from her breasts out of love. Uddhav then joyfully addressed Nanda Maharaj, having clearly seen the supreme loving attraction he and Yashoda felt for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Uddhav said, O respectful Nanda, certainly you and Mother Yashoda are the most praiseworthy persons in the entire world, since you have developed such a loving attitude toward Lord Narayan, the spiritual master of all living beings. So here's where Uddhava begins to express his realization of Krishna in his mood as a Mathuravasi. These two lords, Mukunda and Balaram, are each the seed and the womb of the universe, the creator and his creative potency. They enter the hearts of living beings and control their conditioned awareness. They are the primeval supreme. Anyone, even a person in an impure state, who absorbs his mind in him for just a moment at the time of death, burns up all traces of sinful reactions and immediately attains the supreme transcendental destination in a pure spiritual form as effulgent as the sun. You too have rendered exceptional loving service to him, Lord Narayan, the super soul of all, and the cause of all existence, the great soul, who, although the original cause of everything, has a human-like form. What pious deeds could still be required of you? Infallible Krishna, the Lord of the devotees, will soon return to Braj to satisfy his parents. Having killed Kamsa, the enemy of all the Yadus in the wrestling arena, Krishna will now surely fulfill his promise to you by coming back. Oh, most fortunate ones, do not lament. you will see Krishna again very soon. He is present in the hearts of all living beings, just as fire lies dormant in wood. For him, no one is especially dear or despicable, superior or inferior, and yet he is not indifferent to anyone. He is free from all desire for respect, and yet he gives respect to all others. He has no mother, no father, no wife, children, or other relatives. No one is related to him, and yet no one is a stranger to him. He has no material body and no birth. Who is Buddha speaking this to? His mother and father. He has no work to do in this world that would oblige him to take birth in pure, impure, or mixed species of life, yet to enjoy his pastimes and deliver his saintly devotees, he manifests himself. Although beyond the three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the transcendental Lord accepts association with them as his play. Thus, the unborn Supreme Lord utilizes the material modes to create, maintain, and destroy. Just as a person who is whirling around perceives the ground to be turning, one who is affected by false ego thinks himself the doer, when actually only his mind is acting. The Supreme Lord Hari is certainly not your son alone. Rather, being the Lord, he is the Son, the soul, with a capital S, the father and the mother of everyone. Nothing can be said to exist independent of Lord Achyuta. Nothing heard or seen, nothing in the past, present, or future, nothing moving or unmoving, great or small. He, indeed, is everything, for he is the Supreme Soul. While Krishna's messenger continued speaking with Nanda, the night ended. O king, the women of the cowherd village rose from bed and, lighting lamps, worshipped their household deities. Then they began churning the yogurt into butter. And as they pulled on the churning ropes with their bangled arms, the women of Braj shone with the splendor of their jewels, which reflected the lamp's light. Their hips, breasts, and necklaces moved about, and their faces, anointed with reddish kumkum, glowed radiantly with the luster of their earrings reflecting from their cheeks. As the ladies of Braja loudly sang the glories of lotus-eyed Krishna, their songs, blended with the sound of their churning, ascended to the sky and dissipated all inauspiciousness in every direction. Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Govinda Ki Jai. When the godly sun had risen, the people of Braja noticed the golden chariot in front of Nanda Maharaj's doorway. Who does this belong to? They asked. Perhaps Akrura has returned. He who fulfilled Kamsa's desire by taking lotus-eyed Krishna to Mathura. Is he going to use our flesh to offer funeral oblations for his master, who was so satisfied with his service? As the women were speaking in this way, Uddhava appeared, having finished his early morning duties. So now comes the song of the bee.
You know, Srila Bhaktivedanta Bharati Goswami Maharaj, she said that a rumor had gone to Srimati Radhika that Krishna had returned to Vrindavan because Uddhava has this similar appearance, same chariot, the cloth, the complexion, everything. And she couldn't accept it or believe it for a moment. And he explained why. He said because she was feeling in her heart an overwhelming amount of vatsalyata, not madhuryata. And so she knew it could not be Krishna, it must be someone else. That vatsalyata was for Krishna's devotee, Buddha. I thought it was a very beautiful point he made there.
Well, there's so many quite extensive purports that I've just skipped over here. But all of these things are expressed, and more, so much more, by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So Uddhava, obviously when he met Nanda Maharaj and spoke to him like this, what was Nanda Maharaj's response? Because now he's hearing the Tattva Gyan of the realized personality. He's not rejecting that. But then he said,
even if he is my son,
yes.
even if he is God,
yes.
he is my son.
Yes. But not only that, no, that's a different conversation. That's with the cowherd men when they were trying to tell Nanda Maharaj that he shouldn't be so. Yeah.
Guru Govinda Maharaj was explaining how Nanda Maharaj was saying, you're just a boy, you don't know anything, so I'll excuse you from what you're saying here.
Yes. But the thing that Nanda Maharaj responded to was, you're saying? Because his whole objective was to console Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, right? By doing what? By explaining to them that actually he's the Supreme Soul. He's the Lord Narayan. He's the source of everything. And Balaram is his expansion like this. But then Nanda's response was, you're saying that the Supreme Soul came as my very son? And now he has left me? Oh, therefore, I have even more reason to feel the separation. So he didn't actually console them, but he increased their separation.
Did he also say that Dasaratha died upon the
Yes,
exile of
he
Ram?
mentioned that.
Here I'm still living.
Yes.
So the loss was amplified. Not only did he lose his son, Krishna, but now he's lost the Supreme Lord as well.
Yes.
Right, what kind of...
He's doubly unfortunate.
So the endeavor was completely backfiring.
Yes. So, we know that Uddhava now began his association with the Brajagopis because Uddhava Kunda, that is the very place where Uddhava, or actually I think he was speaking this in Uddhav Kyari. He was speaking these. But Uddhava Kunda is the place where his prayers were answered.
Yes.
Because his prayer was Asamaho Charanarenu Jashamaham Shyam Vrindavane Kimapi Gulma Lato Shadinam. That he wanted to be able to take birth as a shrub, as a blade of grass, like this, so that he could take Charanarenu as a piece of grass on the side of the pathway where the gopis are coming, and particularly one gopi, that he would be able to have the dust of their feet on him. Therefore, he wanted to take birth in Braj. His desire was fulfilled at Uddhavakunda, right near to Radhakunda, where he actually took the forms, took birth in that whole area. And it's told that still to this very day, he's there by those who have the eyes of praying. They can see, just like that history of how they came and did kirtan from Dwarka, the queens, and their kirtan was so full of separation that Uddhava actually came out from the trees and the shrubs. So I always sit right there at the kunda, because they have some steps, and I usually with a little small group of devotees, and then I read the prayers that Uddhava was speaking. But here, because we have time, and so I decided, okay, we'll read the actual 3 chapters, or at least two chapters, because the Song of the Bee, chapter 50, 47, that's the Brahmana Gita chapter. It's at the end of the Brahmana Gita chapter, actually. Yes. Yeah. And then after that is back to Mathura, with Krishna pleases his devotees. So we'll read a little bit and then we'll do the Ashtakams and then the Artik will be there. Shukdev Goswami said, the young women of Vraja became astonished upon seeing Lord Krishna's servant, who had long arms, whose eyes resembled a newly grown lotus, who wore a yellow garment and a lotus garland, and whose lotus-like face glowed with brightly polished earrings. Who is this handsome man, the gopis asked. Where has he come from, and whom does he serve? He is wearing Krishna's clothes and ornaments. Saying this, the gopis eagerly crowded around Uddhav, whose shelter was the lotus feet of Lord Uttamashloka, Sri Krishna. Bowing their heads in humility, the gopis duly honored Uddhav with their shy, smiling glances and their pleasing words. They then took him to a quiet place, seated him comfortably, and began to question him. For they recognized him to be a messenger from Krishna, the master of the goddess of fortune. The gopis said, we know that you are the personal servant of Krishna, the chief of the Yadus, and that you have come here on the order of your good master, who desires to give pleasure to his parents. We see nothing else he might consider worth remembering in these cow pastures of Braj. Indeed, the bonds of affection for one's family members are difficult to break, even for a sage. The friendship shown towards others, those who are not family members, is motivated by personal interest, and thus it is a pretense that lasts only until one's purpose is fulfilled. Such friendship is just like the interest men take in women, or that bees take in flowers. Prostitutes abandon a penniless man, subjects an incompetent king. Students abandon their teacher once they have finished their education, and priests abandon a man who has remunerated them for a sacrifice. Birds abandon a tree when its fruits are gone. Guests abandon a house after they have eaten. Animals abandon a forest that has been burnt down. And a lover abandons the woman he has enjoyed, even though she remains attached to him. Thus speaking, the gopis, whose words, bodies, and minds were fully dedicated to Lord Govinda, put aside all their regular work now that Krishna's messenger, Sri Uddhav, had arrived among them. And constantly remembering the activities that their beloved Krishna had performed in his childhood and youth, they sang about them and they cried without shame. One of the gopis, while meditating on her previous association with Krishna, saw a honey bee before her and imagined it to be a messenger sent by her beloved. Thus she spoke as follows. The gopi said, so this is now called the Brahmara Gita, the pinnacle of the 5 songs of the gopis. And there are 10 verses. And also Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has analyzed each one of the 10 verses, that there's a different type of jalpa. Jalpa means speech, conversation. And each one of these 10 verses, Srimati Radhika is manifesting and expressing these particular moods. So the gopi said to the bumblebee, O bumblebee, O friend of a cheater, don't touch my feet with your whiskers, which are smeared with the kumkum that rubbed onto Krishna's garland when it was crushed by the breasts of a rival lover. Let Krishna satisfy the women of Mathura. One who sends a messenger like you will certainly be ridiculed in the Yadu's assembly. After making us drink the enchanting nectar of his lips only once, Krishna suddenly abandoned us, just as you might quickly abandon some flowers. How is it, then, that Goddess Padma willingly serves his lotus feet? Alas, the answer must certainly be that her mind has been stolen away by his deceitful words. O bee, why do you sing here so much about the Lord of the Yadus in front of us homeless people? These topics are old news to us. Better you sing about that friend of Arjuna in front of his new girlfriends, the burning desire in whose breasts he has now relieved. Those ladies will surely give you the charity that you are begging. In heaven, on earth, or in the subterranean sphere, what women are unavailable to him? He simply arches his eyebrows and smiles with deceptive charm, and they all become his. The Supreme Goddess herself worships the dust of his feet. So, what is our position in comparison? But at least those who are wretched can chant his name. Uttama Shloka. Keep your head off my feet. I know what you're doing. You expertly learned diplomacy from Mukunda, and now you come as his messenger with flattering words. But he abandoned those who, for his sake alone, gave up their children, their husbands, and all other relations. He's simply ungrateful. Why should I make up with him now? Like a hunter, he cruelly shot the king of the monkeys with arrows. Because he was conquered by a woman, he disfigured another woman who came to him with lusty desires. And even after consuming the gifts of Bali Maharaj, he bound him up with ropes as if he were a crow. So let us give up all friendship with this dark-complexioned boy, even if we can't give up talking about him. To hear about the pastimes that Krishna regularly performs is nectar for the ears. For those who relish just a single drop of that nectar, even once, their dedication to material duality is ruined. Many such persons have suddenly given up their wretched homes and families, and themselves becoming wretched, traveled here to Vrindavan to wander about like birds, begging for their living. Faithfully taking his deceitful words as true, we became just like the black deer's foolish wives, who trust the cruel hunter's song. Thus, we repeatedly felt the sharp pain of lust caused by the touch of his nails. O messenger, please talk about something besides Krishna. O friend of my dear one, has my beloved sent you here again? Because at that point the bee left. And then she became worried. So now the bee has returned. O friend of my dear one, has my beloved sent you here again? I should honor you, friend, so please choose whatever boon you wish. But why have you come back here to take us to him, whose conjugal love is so difficult to give up? After all, gentle bee, his consort is the goddess Shri, and she is always with him, staying upon his chest. O Uddhav, it is indeed regrettable that Krishna resides in Mathura. Does he remember his father's household affairs and his friends, the cowherd boys? O great soul, does he ever talk about us, his maid servants? When will he lay on our heads his aguru-scented hand? Shukadev Goswami said, having heard this, Uddhava then tried to pacify the gopis, who were most eager to see Lord Krishna. He thus began relating to them the message of their beloved. Sri Uddhava said, certainly you gopis are all successful, and you are universally worshipped because you have dedicated your minds in this way to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. Devotional service unto Lord Krishna is attained by charity, strict vows, austerities, and fire sacrifices, by japa, study of Vedic texts, observance of regulated principles, and indeed by the performance of many other auspicious practices. By your great fortune, you have established an unexcelled standard of pure devotion for the Lord, Uttama Shloka, a standard even the sages can hardly attain. By your great fortune, you have left your sons, husbands, bodily comforts, relatives, and homes in favor of the supreme male who is known as Krishna. You have rightfully claimed the privilege of unalloyed love for the transcendental Lord, O most glorious gopis. Indeed, by exhibiting your love for Krishna in separation from him, you have shown me great mercy. My good ladies, now please hear your beloved's message, which I, the confidential servant of my master, have come here to bring to you. The Supreme Lord said, you are never actually separated from me, for I am the soul of all creation. Just as the elements of nature, ether, air, fire, water, and earth are present in every created thing, so I am present within everyone's mind, life, air, and senses, and also within the physical elements and the modes of material nature. By myself, I create, sustain, and withdraw myself within myself by the power of my personal energy, which comprises the material elements, the senses, and the modes of nature. Now, there's an ongoing conversation in between in the purports of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, where the gopis are pretty much countering everything that Krishna is saying. But we're not reading that right now. Can do it another time though. So Krishna continues his message to the gopis. Being composed of pure consciousness or knowledge, the soul is distinct from everything material and is uninvolved in the entanglements of the modes of nature. We can perceive the soul through the three functions of material nature known as wakefulness, sleep, and deep sleep. As a person just arisen from sleep may continue to meditate on a dream, even though it is illusory, so, by the agency of the mind, one meditates on the sense objects, which the senses can then obtain. Therefore, one should become fully alert and bring the mind under control. According to intelligent authorities, this is the ultimate conclusion of all the Vedas, as well as all practice of yoga, sankhya, renunciation, austerity, sense control, and truthfulness, just as the sea is the ultimate destination of all rivers. But the actual reason why I, the beloved object of your sight, have stayed far away from you is that I wanted to intensify your meditation upon me and thus draw your minds closer to me. When her lover is far away, a woman thinks of him more than when he is present before her. Because your minds are totally absorbed in me and free from all other engagement, you remember me always, and so you will very soon have me again in your presence. Although some gopis had to remain in the cowherd village, and they could not join the rasa dance to sport with me at night in the forest, they were nonetheless fortunate. Indeed, they attained me by thinking of my potent pastimes. Shukadev Goswami said, the women of Braja were pleased to hear this message from their dearmost Krishna. His words having revived their memory, they addressed Uddhav as follows. The gopis said, it is very good that Kamsa, the enemy and the persecutor of the Yadus, has now been killed along with his followers. And it is also very good that Lord Achyuta is living happily in the company of his well-wishing friends and relatives, whose every desire is now fulfilled. Gentle Uddhav, is the elder brother of Gada now bestowing on the city women the pleasure that actually belongs to us? We suppose those ladies worship him with generous glances, full of affectionate, shy smiles. Sri Krishna is expert in all kinds of conjugal affairs and is the darling of the city women. How can he not become entangled now that he's constantly adored by their enchanting words and gestures? What is going on?
You go do Archie
He wants to do Archie before the Ashtakams. The Ashtakams will be with the curtain open.
Oh, after Arti is okay. No?
Mm-hmm.
Nice reason.
Okay, I'm just reading a little bit more. So then the gopis continued. O saintly one, does Govinda ever remember us during his conversations with the city women? Does he ever mention us village girls as he freely talks with them? Does he recall those nights in the Vrindavan forest, lovely with lotus, jasmine, and the bright moon? As we glorified his charming pastimes, he enjoyed with us, his beloved girlfriends, in the circle of the rasa dance, which resounded with the music of ankle bells. Will that descendant of Dasharha return here, and by the touch of his limbs bring back to life those who are now burning with the grief he himself has caused? Will he save us in that way, just as Lord Indra brings a forest back to life with his water-bearing clouds? But why should Krishna come here after winning a kingdom, killing his enemies, and marrying the daughters of kings? He's satisfied there, surrounded by all his friends and well-wishers. The great soul, Krishna, is the Lord of the goddess of fortune, and he automatically achieves whatever he desires. How can we forest dwellers or any other women fulfill his purposes when he is already fulfilled within himself? Indeed, the greatest happiness is to renounce all desires, as even the prostitute Pingala has declared. That's in the 11th canto. Yet even though we know this, we cannot give up our hopes of attaining Krishna. Who can bear to give up intimate talks with Lord Uttama Shloka? Although he shows no interest in her, Goddess Shri never moves from her place on his chest. Dear Uddhav Prabhu, when Krishna was here in the company of Sankarshan, he enjoyed all these rivers, hills, forests, cows, and flute sounds. All these remind us constantly of Nanda's son. Indeed, because we see Krishna's footprints, which are marked with divine symbols, we can never forget him. O Uddhav, how can we forget him when our hearts have been stolen away by the charming way he walks, his generous smile and playful glances, and his honey-like words? O Master, O Master, O Master of the Goddess of Fortune, O Master of Braja, O Destroyer of all suffering, Govinda, please lift your Gokul out of the ocean of distress in which it is drowning. That's the final verse the gopis told to Uddhava. Then Shukadev Goswami continued, Lord Krishna's messages, having relieved their fever of separation, the gopis then worshipped Uddhav, recognizing him as non-different from their Lord Krishna. Uddhava remained there for several months, dispelling the gopis' sorrow by chanting the topics of Lord Krishna's pastimes, and thus he brought joy to all the people of Gokul. All the days that Uddhava dwelled in Nanda's cowherd village seemed like a single moment to the residents of Braja, for Uddhav was always discussing Krishna. That servant of Lord Hari, seeing the rivers, the forests, mountains, valleys, and the flowering trees of Braja, he enjoyed inspiring the inhabitants of Vrindavan by reminding them of Lord Krishna. Thus, seeing how the gopis were always disturbed because of their total absorption in Krishna, Uddhava was supremely pleased. Desiring to offer them all respect, he sang as follows. And this is the song sung by Uddhav. Among all persons on earth, these cowherd women alone have actually perfected their embodied lives, for they have achieved the perfection of unalloyed love for Lord Govinda. Their pure love is hankered after by those who fear material existence, by great sages, and by ourselves as well. For one who has tasted the narrations of the infinite Lord, what is the use of taking birth as a high-class Brahmana, or even as Lord Brahma himself? How amazing it is that these simple women who wander about the forest, seemingly spoiled by improper behavior, have achieved the perfection of unalloyed love for Krishna, the Supreme Soul. Still, it is true that the Supreme Lord himself awards his blessings even to an ignorant worshipper, just as the best medicine works even when taken by a person ignorant of its ingredients. When Lord Sri Krishna was dancing with the gopis in the Ras Lila, the gopis were embraced by the arms of the Lord. This transcendental favor was never bestowed upon the goddess of fortune or other consorts in the spiritual world. Indeed, never was such a thing even imagined by the most beautiful girls in the heavenly planets, whose bodily luster and aroma resemble the lotus flower. And what to speak of worldly women, who are very beautiful according to material estimation. Now he sings his verse. Asamaho charanarenu jashamaham shyam Brindavane kimapi gulmalato shadhinam Yadustyajam svajanamarya patam cha hitva bejur mukunda padavim shruti bir vimrigyam. The gopis of Vrindavan have given up the association of their husbands, sons, and other family members, who are very difficult to give up. And they have forsaken the path of chastity to take shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, Krishna, which one should search for by the Vedic knowledge. Oh, let me be fortunate enough to be one of the bushes, creepers, or herbs in Vrindavan, because the gopis trample them and bless them with the dust of their lotus feet. The goddess of fortune herself, along with Lord Brahma and all the other demigods who are masters of yogic perfection, can worship the lotus feet of Krishna only within her mind. But during the rasa dance, Lord Krishna placed his feet upon these gopis' breasts, and by embracing those feet, the gopis gave up all distress. Bande Nanda Vrajastrinam Padarenam Abhikshnasham Yasam Harikatod Gitam Punati Bhuvanatrayam. I repeatedly offer my respects to the dust from the feet of the women of Nanda Maharaj's cowherd village. When these gopis loudly chant the glories of Sri Krishna, the vibration purifies the three worlds. Then Shukadev Goswami said, Uddhav, the descendant of Dasharha, then took permission to leave from the gopis and from Mother Yashoda and from Nanda Maharaj. He bade farewell to all the cowherd men, and about to depart, he mounted his chariot. As Uddhav was about to leave, Nanda and the others approached him, bearing various items of worship. With tears in their eyes, they addressed him as follows. Nanda and the cowherds said, May our mental functions always take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. May our words always chant his names. May our bodies always bow down to him and serve him. Wherever we are made to wander about this world by the Supreme Lord's will, in accordance with the reactions to our fruitive work, may our good works and charity always grant us love for Lord Krishna. Then Shukadev Goswami continued, O ruler of men, thus honored by the cowherd men with expressions of devotion for Lord Krishna, Uddhav went back to the city of Mathura, which was under Krishna's protection. After falling down to pay his homage, Uddhav described to Lord Krishna the immense devotion of the residents of Braja. Uddhav also described it to Vasudev, Lord Balaram, and King Ugrasena, and he presented to them the gifts of tribute he had brought with him. Thus ends chapter 47, the Song of the Bee Brahmana Gita. Shri Uddhava Kyari Ki Jai, Uddhava Kunda Ki Jai, Shri Uddhav Ji Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande, Vancha Kalpatarubhascha, Kripa Sindhuvi Evacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Can I get a songbook? Thank you. Damodar Ashtakam. We'll just sing Damodar Ashtakam.
Just Damodar Ashtakam?
Yeah. Know the page number?
290.
290. Okay.
Should I keep the live going and just point it towards Thakurji?
Yeah, you can a little bit. Yeah.
We'll be offering the
You want to go ahead?
Namami Sharam
Radha Shabbat